Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
He's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I could do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella's story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Capital Hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the big show, John. It is great to have you here.
Josh, it's always great to be on any show with you. And you really did a fantastic job today with Steven Libman. He was awesome. I mean, the guy talks about how he had no money, wanted to get in real estate, did something that a lot of really successful real estate investors do, went from being an agent to then wholesaling and then owning single family units to going into a syndication and then multiple syndications and then multi-units and self-storage. And man, it goes on and on. He was so impressive.
Yeah, I would say, and on top of that, today he bought his most recent acquisition, 982 units at one deal, $250 million. So from zero to massive success in real estate, but more important, he's going to share his heart for being abundant. And he has a crazy idea. He says, I want this to be the last rental for the family who rents here of their life, because I want to give them financial knowledge so they can buy their own home, which is a great journey. He's going to share his heart with you. I think you're going to love this episode.
Let's go.
Yeah, that is right. We were able to get Steven Libman here. It is exciting, John. Take it away, brother.
Yeah. Steven, thank you so much for joining us. Can you give our audience a little background on who you are?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Josh, always good to see you. John, nice to meet you. My name is Steven Libman. I'm co-founder of Integrity Holdings Group, better known as Investing with Purpose. We're real estate investors that buy real estate across the country. We have about $500 million worth of assets under management that we've purchased over the last nearly decade or so. You know, our claim to fame, or hopefully not our claim to fame, but the Lord's, is our asset ministry program, where we will dive into a little bit about how we serve our tenants in new and unusual ways, and hopefully make it the last place they'll ever rent.
That is curious. There's a lot to unpack there, John. I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So, Steven, I know you started your business 15 years ago. Can you just rewind us? Like, tell us what it looked like when you first started your real estate? And I know you were starting out with single families and you worked with taxes and you really scaled. Can you take us back to that beginning?
Yeah. Well, like most people, right? The man on top of the mountain landed there, right? No, he did not land there. I was actually a real estate agent working for my sister-in-law, and I was selling real estate to house flippers. And I was watching them figure out how to find investment property and flip it. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I also realized that maybe I could do that. And I didn't have any money. And I was like, well, how do I do this without any money? And started reading and listening to podcasts and found out that there's a thing called wholesaling out there, where you could put a property under contract and then sell that contract to somebody else, and they will do the work. And you can make a small arbitrage, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, whatever, and not have to do the work. You just have to find the deals, which is what we were pretty good at. So we did a bunch of wholesales. We started learning how to do that. And then we saved some money to flip. We started getting hard money loans. And then we started flipping our own houses. And fast forward over the next 7 years, we bought, wholesaled, and flipped somewhere in the vicinity of 1,000 properties in the central New Jersey area. And we were just getting killed on taxes. And I went to a mastermind event, and I was sitting there grabbing a cup of coffee, complaining about my tax bill. And somebody looked over at me and said, you might want to look into buying commercial real estate. There's some significant tax benefits to it. I just assumed he was lying to me. So I dove into the tax code, and turns out he was right. There are some pretty significant tax benefits for commercial real estate operators and owners and investors. And like most things in my life, I didn't do a ton of research. I kind of like to jump and grow wings on the way down. So I figured I knew how to raise some money because we were raising private capital for flips. And I knew I didn't know how to operate any commercial real estate. So I went on the hunt for people that did that. Found a great partner who was just about to embark on a self-storage facility, 1,193 units, if memory serves correctly, on a 14-acre piece of property. He needed $5 million to be raised. And I said, yeah, I could do that. I had no idea if I could do that, but I did say yes. And the Lord showed up through some of my friends and partners, and everyone brought $1 million to this deal, and we did our first deal. And that year we did 3 self-storage facilities, almost 350,000 of storage. And then my tax bill came and I didn't owe anything. And I thought, maybe we built the wrong widget, and we shut down the single family business and we went full time into the commercial space. And then we bought a 66 unit, an 84 unit, 120 unit, 384 units. Last year we closed on the 5th largest transaction in the country at 982 units down in Tampa, Florida, $250 million transaction. So yeah, it's been a huge learning curve, huge blessing. We're honored to serve thousands of tenants and their families across the country. And we're just getting started.
Hey guys, it's John Vroman, founder of Front Row Dads, and you're listening to Capital Hacking, the best investment you'll make today.
Now let's talk about that. I've gotten to know you at different mastermind events, and just the joy that comes through you, buddy. Yeah, I can see you're magnetic. So let's break this down, bro. Okay. The arc of your story is great because it talks about active investing first. We do talk about that a lot on the show. This is a show called Capital Hacking for a reason, right? Human capital, working at improving itself and getting better, finding more people to aggregate and become part of your team. Then worry about financial capital, and all of a sudden it starts to grow. But we do talk a lot about how it takes active deals to build a nest egg. Either that or you need to be born with a lot of cash. But active deal making creates some cash. Then from that, you leveraged your active investing into another level of active investing in commercial, which then what that does, and I'm just teaching for the audience here for a second, that allows those that are not able to be active, whether it's not their talent, maybe it's not their time, they might be a very good doctor or a lawyer or somebody who's highly paid and really great. They don't want to be an active investor. So then they partner with you through your private placements, and they get the tax benefits as if they were the active. They don't get 100% return on their money because that's impossible. If you're raising money and people are offering you 100% profit, 100% returns, it's not possible because once you start raising money, there's other people that need a return too. And so double-digit return. What is your typical return profile you offer investors?
Yeah, so historically, it's been 17% per annum on a blended basis on all the deals that we have exited, right? So all the deals that are still in operation, those are projections.
In operation, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. But our historical track record has been 17% per annum. That doesn't take into account the tax benefits and some other things, but that's been our history.
Well, the thing that is interesting about your history, and I think after we get done this kind of like overview, if you don't mind, I want to learn more about your most recent deal and how a deal of that size gets structured. But going back to the journey from wholesaling to flipping to tax being the problem, leading you to commercial, how did you get from self-storage to apartment? Because it sounds like your first commercial was self-storage.
Yeah. And our partner who helped us, so it was construction, right? It was ground up construction. CubeSmart was the third party manager, but we branded everything CubeSmart. They're the largest in Florida. They did the management. The goal was to do the exit to them, right? So although it was commercial real estate, the goal was really to build it, stabilize it, sell it. So we were really developers, not operators in that particular sense. And being in the residential space for so long, we knew very well that people always needed a place to live. And that partner already owned a couple thousand units of multifamily as well. So he was doing both. And for us, we think that the market was just starting to cool off on the self-storage side. And it takes some time to build stuff, right? It takes 1.5 years, 2 years to get operational and stabilized. So we knew that going into the next season, we wanted something that was already cash flowing. And that's when we started looking for some multifamily. Truth be told, that first couple of deals that we made in self-storage increased our net worth more than 7 years of flipping. So, and the reason that that's an important thing to bring up for your listeners is that now we could sign on some debt that we couldn't before, right? We had net worth to go sign on larger debt, non-recourse debt, and we didn't need a partner. So we thought, hey, what's a really good idea? Let's go own and operate our own deal. That way we don't have to split the profits with any partners. And that was a terrible decision because flipping a house is not like flipping an apartment complex. And what we could afford with our track record and was a 66 unit in Columbus, Ohio. That was frankly a war zone. I mean, we had multiple shootings. We had, unfortunately, people selling themselves for drugs on camera. There was just, it was a rough place. We actually renamed it Shiloh Crossing. Shiloh in the Bible means, and that place needed peace more than anything I've ever seen. And we turned that property around over the next 2.5 years, but it's what my partner is now completely bald. It's what made him go completely bald and me have all this gray in my beard because it was stressful. But it taught us a lot, in terms of like how to own and how to operate, how to get on the debt, but also what some of those challenges are in those C-, D+ type properties that when you're a new operator and you don't have a track record, that's the type of stuff that you can get, right? The broker's not bringing you this Class A, beautiful Miami waterfront building because you have no track record, which makes sense. But that's kind of our focus was always thinking, how do we get into multifamily? Because people needed a place to live, and just supply and demand dynamics made us feel like that would be a good next step.
Yeah,
I love it. Can I jump in here, Josh? So what you said in the beginning, Steven, where you're like, hey, I wanted to get into real estate, but I didn't have any money, so I started wholesaling. I think that hits home with a lot of people who are looking to get into real estate, don't understand, but if they can find deals, there is some amazing upside to it. My question for you is, how did you start raising money once you decided you were going to get into the self-storage unit?
We'll see. Our friend John just went paused on there for a second, but maybe he was going to ask, how did you learn about wholesaling and how does it work? Maybe he was going to teach you, ask you to teach our audience.
And I think, you're right, John. Like there's multiple ways to make money in real estate, even if you can't do all of it. And I think what you were talking about before in terms of relationship capital is just understanding what you bring to the table in each kind of world that you're in. And for me, I was already a real estate agent and then a broker. So I was on the MLS, I was scouring for deals every day. And we were actually listing, this was in 2007, 2008, if you guys remember. It maybe wasn't the best time for real estate, but I was selling a lot of bank-owned properties. So I was seeing a lot of bank-owned properties, and I started to learn how to analyze those deals and how much would it cost to renovate them, and then what do I think the ARV would be. So the skill set that I brought was I knew how to analyze a deal. I knew how to comp a deal on the exit, and I wasn't afraid of embarrassing myself by making ridiculous offers. So I'd go every day, make 20 offers on the MLS of, just whatever I knew I could pay for that deal. And, eventually you find somebody that's willing to sell at that price, and then you get it under contract for 100. Josh knows that it's worth 200 after he puts 40 into it. So I sell it for 110. He puts 40 into, he's in for 150. He sells it for 200. He's made a $50,000 gross margin. I've made 10 grand. I had no capital at risk, but it spent time, effort, energy, and that kind of capital.
Hi, this is Melanie McCallan. Josh and I are just so grateful for the many investors who have already joined us at Accountable Equity. Accountable Equity is so much more than a capital group. It's really a community of accredited investors that want to learn and grow together. I just want to personally invite you, if you want to find out more about this type of investment and see if it's right for you and your family, please visit us at accountableequity.com.
Hey, it's Hal Elrod, author of The Miracle Morning, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. Enjoy.
Yeah, and would you say you did 20 of those, 100 of those? How many of those types of deals do you think you did in your life?
500 of them.
Whoa!
So
that went on for a period of time. How many years?
Well, and then we continued to do it while we were flipping. So we would cherry pick the best deals to flip ourselves and then wholesale out to our list the rest of the deals that we didn't want to do.
And how did you, in the world of flipping, people like us, I never was a house flipper. Obviously, somewhat what we do now is like resort flipping. But tell me, how did you know how to get into construction as a broker? How did you build that expertise? Because that is what flipping is, right? A lot of construction.
Yeah. So what was interesting was being a real estate agent, people would call in and say, hey, you see this bank-owned property, I want to go see it. And then you start working with buyers, right? So brokerage was listing them. I go work with the buyers. And one day I showed 17 houses to one couple, and I fired them at the end of the day. I just was like, they couldn't see past the color on the walls. And I realized that I love real estate, but I didn't want to be a buyer's agent. So what I started doing was I started calling people that closed cash transactions in that county over the last 12 months. Every time I had a new bank-owned property hit the market, and I said, hey, this bank-owned property just hit the market. They're obviously motivated. Do you want to go see it? They would come see it. They were all construction guys.
I got it.
with a little notepad going, how much is that? How much do you budget for a kitchen? How much for a roof? Right. And then I started putting the mat together. And then I took it a step further. I would do all of their calculations before I called them. I said, hey, I just walked this property. It needs a roof, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, and carpet. Based on the numbers that you gave me on the last flip, I estimate it to be this. This is what you could sell it for. Do you want to go see it? Right? I'm making their job easier. And they were just able to say yes or no to if they wanted to go do it. And, very briefly, at the last house I ever sold, I'm working with a construction guy. I sold him 4 houses that year. He easily was going to make $700,000 off of the deals that I him. And he held me hostage at the closing table because somebody stole a pool ladder out of the pool from a bank-owned property. Wells Fargo owned the property. Somebody took a pool ladder out. He said, I'm not closing. There's a $200 pool ladder that's missing. I want you to pay for it. He was my client. So I paid for it because he's holding my commission hostage, right? I have a wife at home. And that was the day I decided, you know what? I don't really work for myself as an agent. I'm going to start doing this myself. I'm going to start finding those deals, contracting those deals and selling them and making a rip off of them. And then I'm going to start flipping them. I kind of understand how this works. And then I was general contracting it myself with my business partner, where we would hire the tile guy and we would hire the roofer and we would GC the project. And then eventually you hire other GCs to run multiple projects for you at the same time. But yeah, it became a pretty big production.
That is a production. So now, I'll finish on this. I mean, with that point, you're in the flipping business for a period of time. Like, how many flips do you think you did? And how many in 1 year?
Total transactions was about 1,000. The best year we did, we probably did between wholesales and flips. We probably flipped 30 properties while we wholesaled 120 of them. So about 150 transactions that year.
Wow. That is
that's moving.
So, Steven, I want to transition a little bit, because we were talking before the show about the charity that you and your partner do in your business, and which I think is so incredible. And I don't know that we've ever met anyone that does what you guys are doing. Can you share that, please?
Yeah. So we were praying, like, Lord, how do we give more abundantly now before we quote unquote make it? I had a girl from the Philippines come back from work in the red light district, and she was 23 years old, from our church, and she came for Christmas. Hey, you guys have gotten these phone calls. Hey, can I come over and tell you what I'm doing in the Philippines? Of course, right? They bring the flip book. They're there to raise money. They want $20 a month, $50 a month, whatever you can afford. And man, it broke my heart that we couldn't fund the whole year for her to go back. And I asked the question, like, well, how much is it going to cost for the whole year? And she was like, nobody asked that before. Why do you want to know? I said, well, the Bible says first count the cost. I'd like to know what I'm going to be paying for in the future. So what's it look like? It was like 15 grand for her to go there for a year. But what bothered me was that instead of resting and relaxing with her family during the holiday time when she was home, not on the front lines of her ministry, she had to raise capital. And I felt like she should be relaxing and recharging. So anyway, through some prayer, I was like, how do we give more abundantly now before we have this big business to pay for everything? And we just decided to give 1% of company profit past the tithe on our next commercial deal that we did. And then 2%, and then 4%, and then 8%. I think the last deal was 13%. And we've supported 40 different ministries, impacted over 250,000 lives, fed thousands of people in Thailand and the Philippines, and dug wells in Western Africa. It's been absolutely incredible. We actually put the fuel on a 787 that was leaving Bagram Air Force Base with Afghani refugees the day that they shut down Bagram. We got a call from one of our friends who's a special forces guy. He said, hey, we need fuel. It's going to cost X. Can you fund it? There's 700 souls on board. And we were able to help participate in that. And it was just, it's an incredible experience being able to just be a small part of that for the people that are on the front lines. Fast forward to a couple of years ago, and it was like, man, this is so cool, sending all this money all over the place. But the Lord started to convict me of the fact that we have thousands of people that live in the communities that we own. What about them? So we started what we call the Asset Ministry Program, or AMP, and started working through some different tactics, right? Of how do we serve the tenants in new and unusual ways and really spread the gospel to the place that we own. What I loved about COVID is that it showed us very clearly that there were two separate people in this world, those that own and those that were told what to do. And we owned. Right. So what I realized was that they can't tell us what to do. They can't tell us to not have a Bible study on Saturday morning in the conference center that we own. They can't tell us that we can't do prayer walks on Friday nights around the complexes that we own. And So now we give free apartments to on-site ministers that live in our complexes. They run biweekly events. They're going in, saying hello to everybody that moves in. They're going in and talking to people before they renew their leases and get them to renew. We do movies under the stars for the kids. We just did a Moana and Maui night under the stars with all the kids dressed up. And we just gave out hundreds of backpacks for back to school across the portfolio. And these on-site ministers run all of this stuff bi-weekly. There's a new event, free farmers markets. We work with farmers that have given us free produce to give away to our folks that live there. We bought vans to shuttle people back and forth to church if they want to go to church. We give free tutoring to kids that live on site during the summertime so they don't fall behind. We've partnered with the Ramsey organization to give them a free financial education to help them get out of debt, fix their credit, save for a down payment so they can go buy a house eventually and not be forever renters. So what we realized is that this opportunity not only creates a good temporal return, right, but an eternal one as well, because we get to serve people in ways that we never thought we'd be able to serve because we own the complex.
Dang, drop the mic. All right. So the logistics of all that you just said you do for your members, your residents, seems quite cumbersome. Is that a program that I've heard of before where do you partner with a charity that knows how to do that with you?
Hey everybody, it's Robert Helms, host of the Real Estate Guys radio program. And when you're not listening to our show, make sure you're tuned to Capital Hacking. You're going to dig it.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a few actually out there. Apartment Life is the most well-known one. Apartment Life has been in business since the 80s. They have ministered over 40,000 different apartment complexes across the country. So we work with them and a company called Way Forward. And then on some complexes, we have to supplement, meaning we need to find additional help. The complex is too big. What we're doing there isn't going to be enough. So what do? We let the church be the church, right? We call the churches that are local and we say, hey, do you want to partner with us and adopt our complex? Here's the framework that we see work that you can come in and you can help us do X, Y, and Z. And here's how we're going to help support it financially. And it's all about leverage, right?
Wow.
How are we pulling different levers to let people that are experts in what they do really help us, right? The Ramsey organization with Financial Peace University, brilliant program. I went through it when I was first married. We offer it for free for our tenants. Not everybody takes us up on it, but the people that want to, it's available, right? And there's just all these different levers that you can pull as the owner of the complex to get people involved and serve the tenants.
Steven, thank you so much. That is so exciting. As we wrap up, how can our listeners get in touch with you with questions or
John,
anything
before
else?
you let our good friend go, Steven, I think that we lost the connection there a little bit with John, but Steven, before we let you go, can you reflect a little more on the most recent deal and talk a little bit about your investor community or the community of investors that join you? How big is that and where are they from? And what does a person look like who's an investor with you? Like, what does that look like to join forces with you?
Yeah. So it's changed over the years a little bit. I think as a salesperson, you want to be all things to all people, but the Lord really convicted me of like, hey, you're on mission here. This is what you want to do. So we're really focused on bringing the message to faith-driven entrepreneurs and faith-driven investors that want to make an impact and a return. So, and not all of our investors are obviously faith-based, but they love the impact and the intentionality in which, so whether they agree with our theology is irrelevant. What they love is the heart behind it, right? So how can I make a good return on investment and serve people in a powerful way, right? And that's the typical investor. We have nearing 500 investors. We've put over $125 million of equity on the street in the past 7 years that has related to almost $500 million worth of property. Most people just find us through word of mouth or through speaking engagement, through podcasts like yourself. And they get mission aligned, right? Something different that we'd like to do is we do these quarterly events on site at our properties to where our investors can come over the country and come serve the tenants with us, right? Do barbecues, bounce houses, sack races, face painting, and those investors can come alongside and not only see where their income is coming from, but the lives that they're impacting by doing this.
Yep.
Amazing.
And one last thought before we wrap up here. And John, I know we lost you there a second ago, but we got you back, so we're happy. The deal that you just did staggers my mind. 982 units in Florida, I think you said, right?
Yep.
Total capital needed between debt and equity, $250 million. What was the actual equity raise, and what does that deal look like to put together? Is that the biggest one you've done?
I'd argue it's the biggest one most people have done. The reality is $250 million deals are not a dime a dozen, right? They don't come around very often. So to put that size deal together, you need things. One, you need good partners, right? You need the type of people that can sign on $250 million loans. But here's what's very interesting about this deal. This deal was closing 2 years ago, and we knew the general partner who was putting it together. And he offered us to come in for $2.5 million. And the depreciation was good. It was in December. We needed a piece of a deal. So we jumped into a deal at $2.5 million. And then interest rates started to go crazy. This was a big reposition. And there was a private equity firm out of Manhattan that had put 53 in equity and nearly $200 million in debt, $198 million in debt. They put $53 million into equity in. Interest rates were skyrocketing. They wanted to get out of the multifamily space. So they came to the operator and said, we want you to buy us out. And we went back and he said, hey, they want us to buy them out. You guys will have first crack at it. What's it look like? And he negotiated a $50,000 buyout. They left $53 million on the table for $50,000. Here's why. They're a multi-billion-dollar real estate investment trust out of Manhattan. 95% of their portfolio, single-family residential mortgages. They were crushing it, right? Interest rates have moved significantly. The $500 million that they had in the multifamily space, they wanted to liquidate. And if they liquidated it even at a loss, they were still able to pay their REIT dividend in alliance with what they were going to say that they were going to pay anyway. So we got a screaming deal, meaning we bought them out for $50,000. We had to bring $14 million of additional equity to buy the note down for them to do the refinance. But essentially, we got a $200 million deal for $14 million in equity that were 50/50 partners on.
Congratulations, buddy. There's so much more to that. I don't think we can dissect it in this episode. The math in my head, that was a little too advanced for where we were going with this show. We're starting at the beginning, and then we're getting to something super interesting. Clearly, you had to put together a bunch of signatories to get that kind of debt, I imagine. So that's a whole nother mission. Can't wait to get you back on the big show in the future. But in the meantime, how can our listeners find you and find your podcast too?
Man, yeah. So go to investingwithpurpose.org. The podcast is Investing with Purpose. The book is Investing with Purpose. If you see a theme here, the whole idea is how do you align your core values with your investment thesis? And that's what we're trying to teach people that they can do. It's not a single option, right? They can invest with operators like you, with me, that align with their core values, actually make more sense for both temporary returns and impact-driven returns. And there's more and more of us out there. I can't wait to have you on our podcast.
Can't wait, buddy. Thanks for the time. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys.
Cheers.
See ya.
Bye.
Damn straight. We just got
buddy.
We got to the end of another great show. And everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.